My name is Loretta Pauline Johnson, was Skoglund. I was born in a house down in Minneapolis.
Okay. When? What's your birthday?
May 19th, 1925. My mother was Signe Wilhelmina Peterson until she got married and was Skoglund.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was Carl Emil Skoglund. My mom was very patient, and she didn't have much to cook with or anything, but she always made a good meal, and she always, if you wanted something, she got it for you. And my dad was more businesslike, and he wanted everything his way outside. Mom had the inside, the home, and he had the outside. He was a carpenter for a while down in the cities. We lived in the cities till I was 3 years old. And he had a grocery store, my dad. And his brother had a meat store next door. And moved up, I was 3 years old, we moved up in Spruce Hill Township. And farmed ever since then.
Okay.
And my mom was always pleasant and glad to see me, and when I came home and whatever.
Yeah. So you kind of said what your dad did, but what did your mom do as far as like a job, or I mean?
She worked in the cities before she was married, but I don't know what she did.
Okay.
I have never heard that.
But then once she got married, she just was at home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My dad, when he retired, my dad couldn't sit still or anything, so he had bees.
Mm.
And he sold honey, he extracted honey.
Oh, really?
And sold it, and if the bees would swarm, he'd get all us kids out and banging on the kettles and stuff, so they would settle down so he could catch them. And my mom played piano, and then I started playing, and we both enjoyed just playing piano, and she liked to cook.
Mm-hmm.
And always enjoyed visitors.
Okay. Well, now let's talk about your grandparents. I mean, do you have certain grandparents that you remember more than the other ones? Were you
Well, my mom's parents I remember more because they lived around here, and my dad's mom didn't live here. So, well, they did live here for a while, but she farmed and lost her husband early, and then she moved to Minneapolis. My mom's parents lived on a farm close by them even, and I think that's why my mom and dad got together. But I remember going there because my grandma cooked just something else. She could have a house full and have leftovers. And my grandpa, I remember we'd sit on his lap, and he had a beautiful beard. He'd always trim it. And he had wavy hair and a good head of hair. And his beard was wavy like his hair was. But we would always sit and stroke on his beard, and then he'd bark at us and scare us away. I remember that.
How many siblings do you have, and what are their names?
Oh, okay.
And then what's the order from oldest to youngest of them?
My oldest brother is Clifford, and he farmed all the time. As he grew up, boy, he farmed. And he married and had a family. Then my sister was born, and she worked in the cities for a while, and then she married, and they farmed out not too far from us, and they had two boys and two girls. And then it was another brother, and one is 4 years apart and the other one's 5 years apart. Okay. And my other brother just passed away this summer at 99 years old. And he and I were closer than the others, because the others were older and busy working and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And you're the youngest?
Pardon?
You're the youngest?
Yes, I'm the youngest.
Okay, and you're 95?
95 and a half.
95 and a half, okay. What was the house you grew up in like?
Okay. Well, to start with, when we moved out in the country, and I was 3 years old then, like I said, I remember only one thing, and that's a metal bread box on the kitchen table. You know, there was a lot of things just put in the house and moved off the truck that moved us, and so on and so forth. And then when I was 6 years old, we left that farm and moved to a bigger one, and we had a big house. And there was 4 bedrooms upstairs and 1 down. And it was heated with just the heat that was on main floor and registers in the ceiling. So it got pretty cold in the winter. But we managed, and it wasn't modern or anything, but not a lot of them weren't.
Yeah. Is it still, I mean, like to this day, is it still there, the house?
I haven't been there for a couple of years, but the last it was.
Okay.
It had a big screen porch, and us kids would be out there a lot, so.
Mm-hmm. So then what was how did you spend like your free time when you were a kid?
Just played outside. We had neighbors close by, and we'd get together with them, and we'd play had a playhouse, you know, that
Yep.
we could have little dishes and stuff. And
Yeah. Okay, so what about like, did you guys ever go on like family vacations? Or
no.
anything like that? No?
If we did, it would be just one day going to a lake or something.
Okay.
Or we would drive to Uppsala too. We would do that. But it would take a long time.
Is that in Minnesota?
Yes, and it isn't very far, and it took quite a while because you didn't have cars that went 70 miles an hour.
So what was the name, do you remember, of your best friends when you were growing up?
Oh dear, I had Muriel was one. She was next to us, and then we had relation that we associated with a lot, and so us girls got to be good acquaintances, you know.
Yeah. And then did you go, so you went to school?
Country school. I walked 2.25 miles.
Every day? And that was that in Clarissa, or was that it just, okay. And what grades did you?
All 8. I went to high school.
Okay.
I have some pictures of all that.
There you go. I'll have to look through. What was your favorite subject in school?
Oh, I liked math, and I guess maybe English, I don't know.
Yeah. How many boyfriends have you had in your life?
Let's see, 1, 3.
3?
1, 2. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. So who was your first date then? Who did you go on your first date with?
First what?
Ever. Your first date.
Who was it?
Yeah. Do you remember who it was?
Yeah, it was Ray.
Ray? How old were you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I was in high school, I know that.
Okay. So a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
What was your spouse's name?
Willis Osborne Johnson.
Okay, and then how did you guys meet?
At a dance.
At a dance? In town here or?
In a neighboring town, Bertha.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then what day were you married?
September 28th,
What year?
1946.
So you would have been, how old?
Old enough, 21.
21? Okay, and where were you? In a church?
Mm-hmm, Spruce Hill Lutheran Church.
Okay, and what do you remember about your wedding day? What was the
What
weather like?
We had 7 o'clock was our wedding time, and we had a full church. We had just a coffee afterwards, and we had attendance. I had 3 attendants, and so did my husband, and none of them are alive, including my husband. And we got everything done at the church, and some of them got together, some of our buddies, and took us to Alec for a dance.
Okay.
Just a social thing, you know?
Yep.
We had a lot of fun.
And how many children do you have?
3.
Okay, and then what are their names?
Bruce, Bradley, and Brenda.
And that's the order, oldest to youngest? Okay. And when your kids were younger, who was the biggest troublemaker?
The boys, both of them.
Both of them?
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say is the most rewarding thing about being a parent?
Just having your family and a loving husband, and that you could be with your children on into age.
Mm-hmm. What did you and your husband do as occupations, as jobs?
We had a grocery store
Okay. What can
in Clarissa.
Okay. Can you tell us about your grocery store?
It was work.
What was the name?
Fairway Foods.
Okay. How long did you have it?
Oh my goodness. We must have had it about, let's see, 47 and 70, 30 some years.
Wow. So was that the only, I mean, after that, you just didn't do
No, we retired and sold the store, and my husband, Willis, went on the road and sold subscriptions to a business, what should I say, organization.
Okay.
And I went to work for the drugstore.
Okay. Okay, so now kind of going back to your parents, what do you remember about the day that each of your parents passed away?
That's not hard to remember. My dad died, and we had his funeral at Spruce Hill Church, and the gravesite's alongside of the church. So we went out there for burial, and we were walking back in to have lunch in the church basement. The boys, Bruce and Brad, were walking with my mom, and she just got back in the church and she died. Heart attack.
Wow. And how old were they then? Your parents?
My dad was 82 and my mom was a little over 80.
Okay. What is the greatest invention that you have ever seen in your life?
I've never thought of that. It has to be all this medical stuff going with our, like yours now. And
technology.
Yes.
Yeah. And do you remember, speaking of technology, do you remember the first time you watched a television?
Yes, I do. When we got married. And then we bought our folks one, and they said no, they didn't need it, television, but pretty soon they came and said we have our lunch, and so we could watch TV.
And have you met any famous people? You ever met a celebrity or anybody like that?
I don't think so.
And then what about how many states have you been to in the U.S.?
Well, I've been west to the Yellowstone and back again. And I've been to Indiana and back, Chicago and back. And we were to the Bahamas and back.
So then what would you say of those places is the most, like, what was the most beautiful place that you ever been of those?
I have to say the mountains in Montana.
Yeah. What is your favorite family recipe?
Oh my. My caramel rolls.
Your caramel rolls?
Yeah.
Well, that's funny. I don't know that I've ever had your caramel rolls.
I don't make them anymore.
I'm just kidding.
Because there's nobody around, and it makes a whole pan.
I suppose you get a ton of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who would you consider to be the most influential person to you that has ever been in your life?
Oh my gosh. That's a long life, you know. I think Vonda Hedlund.
Okay, who is she?
She isn't anymore, but we lived together, not together, we lived side by side over at the house. And Willis would say, "You are more like sisters than sisters are." And we were really close.
Okay.
So I would say Vonda.
Okay. What is your biggest fear?
Biggest fear? I don't think I really have one.
You're not afraid of anything? Not even like spiders or snakes or something like that?
Oh, snakes.
Don't like snakes?
Snakes, yeah.
Otherwise, nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the single most memorable moment of your life?
My wedding.
Okay. And then what would you say that you are most thankful for?
Most what?
Thankful for.
My family,
Yep.
my husband, and that I know the Lord.
And what is the greatest life lesson that you have learned?
Be thankful for the little and the big things and the good and bad friends.
Okay, and then last question. If you could tell your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren one thing to always remember, what would it be?
Oh, I'd have to think about that. Be kind and lovable. And don't get upset too fast.
Good advice.